Welcome, everyone. At this time, I will call the January 20th, 2026 County Council meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is to recognize the Honorable Bump Roddy in District 4 for invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Let's stand. Before I say the prayer, I want to ask everybody to just take a moment of silence and just reflect on all the many people that's walked this earth that has made significant contributions so that we can assemble here today in peace and enjoy some of the freedoms and liberty that we're awarded and afforded. And obviously the things that we enjoy here in South Carolina as well. So we'll take a moment of silence real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you once again with humble hearts, bowed heads, and closed eyes. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us. We thank you for the grace and mercy you've shown to us and for us during critical times that we've faced throughout the years. We ask that you continue to watch over us, lead us, and guide us so that as we assemble here, that we do the work of the people and lead by example. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not have any oath of office tonight or appearances, so we will move straight into our public forum session. Public forum session at the county is an opportunity for individuals to come and speak to the council on items that are within council jurisdiction. We ask that you please keep your comments to an item that is within the council jurisdiction. Because we have an agenda to follow through with tonight, each individual gets 2 minutes to speak. The council does not interact. Some folks will get out here and they'll ask a question. That's not the purpose of this meeting. It's simply to listen and to hear from folks in the community. If you would kindly pay attention to the screen, we hope it works. It will let you know when your 2 minutes is about to be up and when your time is up. And if you'll kindly cut off your comments at that point, then I don't have to do it. If you are here for an item that is a public hearing item, and we do have 2 public hearing items, we ask that you wait and reserve your comment for the public hearing item. You won't be limited to the 2 minutes then, and it's a better place for your comments to coincide with the issue that's in front of council, so we'll have a better record. First individual is Steve Penland. And when you come forward, if you give your name and address before you start speaking.
My name is Steve Penland, and my wife and Judy and I live at 6457 Campbell Road in York County. Have been a small business owner as a Christmas tree grower for over 60 years. Our farm borders the recent purchase by the QTS data center. Site 1 has many grand trees, and how many were cut down will never be known. The recent purchase has a request for removal of grand trees, but is said to be under review. Presently, there are no trees flagged as grand trees on the recent purchase of from the Walton Group. Dr. Jack Ward, the previous owner of the purchased property, and of course Jack sold it to the Walton Group, and he and I walked this farm before selling it to the Walton Group, and I saw several hundred trees over the 24-inch diameter. The purchased property is also the home of possibly the largest and oldest beech tree in North America. The tree measures over 14 and a half feet in circumference and is estimated to be over 200 years old. The proposed change to the grand tree ordinance for increased fencing will help the grand tree ordinance, but we need to do more to protect our county heritage. The grand tree ordinance should not give developers the right to make a site design that favors what objection items listed for in the grand tree ordinance versus the grand tree presence and does not protect our grand trees in York County. Also, the act of clear-cutting entire areas like what was done on Site 1 puts undue pressure on the environment and the surrounding community. I'd like to please remember that we exist because of oxygen produced by plants and trees, not by large companies promising York County great riches by destroying the environment, the wildlife habitat, our heritage, and the residents' way of life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Allison Moses.
Good evening. I'm Allison Moses. I'm at 111 North Grandview Road. I'm the second generation Christmas tree grower of Penland Christmas Tree Farm. My parents, Steve and Judy Penland, planted their first tree on our land in 1966. The farm provides Christmas trees to thousands of families in our area every year and has over for 50 years. Today, I want to bring my concerns before you about QTS. I am very concerned about the climate change in this facility will bring in our area and how it will affect our tree growing cycles. With temperatures in the area increased, it will majorly affect our tree growing. I'm also concerned about the water consumption QTS will be using for their coolers. In the facility, if the facility is using well water, it will affect the water table in our area, and the trees will have a very hard time growing with lower water. Another concern is the unknown pollution QTS will put in our area. Our community is very special to me, and I will hate to see the landscape drastically change, and including the grand tree removals in the surrounding property. I believe York County and QTS have blindsided our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Patrick Lloyd.
Hi, good evening. My name is Patrick Lloyd. I live at 3503 Conway Court in Fort Mill. Tonight I want to speak to you about Silfab Solar. Members of the council, this project did not move forward by accident. York County Council approved Silfab through the inducement ordinance and the FILO agreement. County lawyers and staff have said the FILO was the deciding document that allowed Silfab to move forward at this site. That means this council opened the door. But approving a project does not cancel the law. It does not replace required zoning steps, as you know. York County Code, Section 155.262 requires zoning compliance approval before a change of use. York County Code, Section 155.1123 says that approval of compliance must come before the zoning administrator. South Carolina Code Section 629950 says permits cannot be issued without the approval of the zoning administrator. Those steps were skipped. You may be hearing from staff that no laws were broken. That is incorrect. Saying it does not make it true. The law is written down and the sequence is clear. Council should not blindly rely only on what staff says. You need independent verification. Read the ordinance, read the state law, the facts are in the public record. Council action set this project in motion. That means council has the responsibility to fix what went wrong. You cannot approve a project and then ignore the law when broken. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Brittany Gildner.
Brittany Gildner, I live at 1130 Gold Rush in Fort Mill. Members of council, York County Code Section 115262 is very clear. When a property changes how it is used, zoning compliance approval must happen before the change. The property at 7149 Logistics Lane changed from distribution to manufacturing. Council members have publicly said that manufacturing brings in about 5 times the revenue of distribution. That statement matters because it confirms this was a major change, not a minor adjustment. Because of that change, a traffic impact analysis, or TIA, was required. The purpose of a TIA is to account for the change in use. County staff also told Silfab that a civil site plan was required because of the different use. Those requirements prove there was a major change of use for the property at Logistics Lane. But despite these changes, zoning compliance approval never happened before permits were issued. Permits were issued without zoning approval. Zoning verification is not zoning compliance. Revenue does not replace the law. The question for council is simple. Does higher tax revenue justify skipping required steps? Construction began before checking whether the new use was allowed. That is exactly what York County Code Section 115262 was written to prevent. York County Code Section 155262 was broken. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Jen Williams.
Evening. Jennifer Williams, I live in the Saddlegate neighborhood. Members of council, York County Code Section 155.1123 says who is allowed to approve zoning compliance. York County says, this code says that the zoning administrator must do it. Not staff, not a zoning technician, not a verification letter. If the law names one official, only that official has the authority. In this case, zoning compliance approval was never issued by the zoning administrator. Using a zoning verification instead breaks York County Code Section 155.1123. If the zoning administrator did not approve it, zoning compliance did not happen. Zoning matters because pollution limits alone do not protect the people. DES pollution limits are the same no matter where a facility is located. They do not change based on nearby homes, schools, or neighborhoods. What protects people is location. The USC study that we've provided shows that when accidents happen, the harm is controlled by distance. Zoning is the tool that keeps dangerous activities away from where people live. When zoning compliance is skipped, that protection is lost. York County Code Section 155.1123 was broken. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. David Ortiz.
My name is David Ortiz, Horseshoe Trail, Fort Mill. Permits issued before zoning approval break South Carolina Code 629950. Members of the council, South Carolina Code 629950 is a state law. It says that it is unlawful for other officials to issue any permit without the approval of the zoning administrator. That did not happen here. Multiple permits have been issued. Approval by the zoning administrator never happened. State law does not allow for this. When permits are issued without approval of the zoning administrator, they are not legal under South Carolina Code 629950. State law has been broken.
Thank you, sir. Andrea Olson.
I am Andrea Olson. I live at 580 Medora Lane in Fort Mill. Members of council, South Carolina Code Section 629.1145 requires the county to check deed restrictions in writing to see if they conflict with or prohibit the proposed use. This step exists to protect the public. York County normally does this check as part of the zoning compliance application process, but SILFAB never submitted a zoning compliance application. Because of that, the deed restriction check never happened. There is no public record showing deed restrictions were reviewed before permits were issued. Skipping this step breaks South Carolina Code 629.1145. This law exists for a reason. A title search was done, and it revealed a deed restriction that prohibits uses involving noxious and toxic fumes. That makes the failure to review deed restrictions especially serious and raises clear concerns about public safety. South Carolina Code Section 629.1145 was broken. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Brandon Dunford.
Brandon Dunford, 157 Rose Tree Lane, Fort Mill. Members of council, a temporary occupancy permit is only valid if the permits underneath it are legal. In this case, zoning compliance was never approved, and because of that, permits issued before zoning approval are unlawful under York County Code and South Carolina law. This means the temporary occupancy permit is built on illegal permits. A public letter from the Attorney General states that when permits are issued unlawfully, the governing body has the authority to revoke them. The authority belongs to this council. When laws are broken, responsibility does not sit with staff, it sits with the governing body. York County Code 155.262 was broken because zoning compliance did not occur before the change of use. York County Code 155.1123 was broken because zoning compliance was never approved by the zoning administrator. South Carolina Code 6.29.950 was broken because permits were issued without zoning approval, and South Carolina Code 6.29.1145 was broken because deed restrictions were not reviewed. These are not opinions. This is the law, black and white. In our prayer, we just said to the Heavenly Father and Most High, let the will of the people, not big business. Please enforce the law you've sworn to uphold and that thousands of your constituents are demanding. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Thompson.
Chris Thompson, District 2, Vander Lakes subdivision. I spoke to you guys your last meeting on behalf of some neighbors regarding market concerns about the data center. We gave you a list for you, not QTS, to answer, a list of questions for you to answer. So far, we've had no response, and Councilwoman Cox, would you please let me know when we can expect a response? I ask for your answers because they, not QTS's answers, mean something to the people who elected you, and we need to understand what your position is on this issue. You see, we've done some extensive research about how data centers impact the people and the communities around them, and it's not good. So we need to know how in the world you could have come up to the conclusion that allowing this massive big tech complex to come into our neighborhood and our county was a good idea, because it's clearly not a good idea. In fact, it's a terrible idea. Let me explain. Data centers consume massive amounts of electricity that could overwhelm the local power grid and increase electricity costs for residents. They require significant amounts of water. Even the closed-loop system that QTS boasts, it uses water and other chemicals and coolants that could affect water resources and increase the risk of contamination of our groundwater. The constant operation of cooling systems and generators creates significant noise and negatively impacts mental and physical health. Hundreds of trees have already been cleared out, destroying wildlife habitats, forcing predators into residential neighborhoods, and endangering our children and pets. Soil erosion and stormwater runoff are increasing flooding risks, and conservation easements are being abandoned. Diesel generators emit harmful pollutants, and their low-frequency noise causes hearing loss and sleep disturbances. We need your answers now, not QTS's.
Thank you, ma'am. Stacey Armstrong.
Thank you, Board. I'm Stacey Armstrong, 1705 Wedgefield Drive in Rock Hill. My property abuts the right-of-way and then abuts the data center that is starting to go in, and we're in Phase 1 section, and we border on Phase 2. So you can clearly see right now, as of this weekend, where the entire ground has been leveled up into a tree line, which heads over to Mr. Penland's area. I'm going to speak right now on the emissions from the chosen fossil fuel that they're using as a backup generation. I know that they will need this backup because they have a demand for the electricity throughout the day. It is unceasing, 24/7, 365 days a year. We do not meet what we need to now with the Duke output. I realize Duke is installing battery power on some of the old coal plants now on Lake Wylie and things of that nature, and also some substations to supplement that, but I mean, it's not there today. The EPA issue, they see this as allowing up to 50 hours additional as of 4 days ago of running the generators to meet demand for these non-emergency situations, which prior to this, it was only during emergency they could run these generators. Now they get up to 50 hours to run these generators. The generators that are there are diesel generators that are a combination of NOx gases and PM 2.5. These are known as silent killers. They're the particles that get in the lungs and stay in the lungs and cause issues similar, after 30 minutes, they said it's similar to a cough and breathing issue problem, and ultimately they can cause cancers, emphysema, various health issues. There is no threshold for the safety of these products, meaning there is no safe level. We are about to experience what this is like, living this close to a center, to have high particulate matter of this in our air that we breathe. Thank you.
ma'am. Julie Ferraro.
Hi, Julie Ferraro, Vander Lakes, York, South Carolina. I'm here to speak on behalf of the QTS Data Center and the concerns that citizens have after doing considerable amount of research. Biggest concern, again, is that power consumption, and the Duke Energy is already basically at capacity. We already know that. That's not a secret. And there has been many times we've had to do rolling blackouts because of that. And there are still thousands of homes to be built and a high school to be built that will also be draining the power consumption for that area. So for them to be able to support QTS is unfathomable. They supposedly are going to have 24 generators now that are tremendous sized generators. The diesel fuel, again, air pollution, and the consumption of that constant particulate going into the air, as she had stated, is of grave concern for many of us. I have lung issues. I live very close to that area. Other major concern is obviously the water pollution. The big portion of the property runs all along Little Addison Creek and Lake Wiley, dumps into Lake Wiley and the Catawba River, and the construction and operation of large data centers can disrupt habitats, reduce biodiversity, and contribute to soil erosion and water pollution. Energy analysts and environmentalists state that diesel generators are exempt from Clean Air Act regulations in times of energy emergencies. The water consumption is another issue. Property values, I'm a real estate agent. I can tell you right now that already there, with SILFAB as well, people asking questions about how close are we located to that. The acquisition of the 677 acres currently right now, nobody seems to know what they're doing, but there's a permit that was pulled in November of 2024 that is a sketch plan for, on the 3.1 acre parcel, for 4 more data centers.
Thank you, ma'am. Bobby Kimball.
Yes, ma'am, I don't need the whole 2 minutes. I'm concerned about the Ford dealership.
If you'll give your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bobby Kimball, 1670 York Highway, York, South Carolina. I'm concerned about the Ford dealership next to my property. They have demoed 2 houses, cleared it, and they look like about 40 trucks sitting on it, and on the seed and the straw. I know that's just the first phase of it. I need to know the second phase and the third phase. I want to know where the storm water is going to go to. I hope it don't come on my property. That's all I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Scott Kokenauer.
Hey everybody, Scott Kokenauer, 122 West Oak Street in the beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood, downtown Fort Mill. Hey, I sit on the Historic Review Board for the town of Fort Mill, in my 7th year of that, and for 20 plus years I've either sat on planning commission or zoning review board and stuff along that line. But anyway, so the Bailey bill hit, when we heard about that last week, they just brought us what we call the White Plant. They're going to remodel it and update it as the Williamson Mill. So it's going to be 177 apartments. So anyway, and the family that owns it is the E Rugs or the Rugs.com family, and they're ready to progress on pretty quick with that. So they are interested in the Bailey bill along that line. My question on that is, let's make sure we talk with the school district first to make sure they're going to participate in it, or if they need to along that line. Because right now with the town of Fort Mill, the county just issues the full amount, and then the Bailey bill that we've offered in the city, in the town of Fort Mill, they come back and just get a refund from that. So But with the school district handling 65% of our tax revenue per year, I just hope we do talk to the schools on that and everything. So, and their second phase of that is in front of Planning Commission tonight. So that's going to be a 2-story parking deck, 20,000 feet of main floor space on Webster, and then 3 floors of apartments above it. So that's another 177 units coming in there, and they are going to pay the full impact fee for the school district and for the town of Fort Mill. So they're ready to roll. They said they're getting on it and everything. So. And the Walk for Peace was a great event. It was awesome that it happened for us. I had about 100 people standing on Highway 21 about half hour before this, and I was so nervous. I kept trying to just get them away. We really need to work with pennies to increase our buffer space between our pedestrian pathways and our project there on 21. Thank you for everything y'all do.
Thank you, sir. Jessica Buffler.
Hi, my name is Jessica Buffler. I live in Regent Park, Fort Mill. So my husband and my 2 children, I'm here to talk about SILFAB. We moved here about 2 years ago from Michigan. We decided to relocate to the Charlotte area for a job, but being in the area, we found that Fort Mills, the schools had a great reputation. Everything seemed like that was the place to go for the schools. We have 2 young children. However, now it seems like everything's changed. Don't feel safe even sending my children to the school now that SILFAB is part of basically the parking lot, so close to Flint Hill Middle School and Flint Hill Elementary. So we feel stuck as if somebody took our basic human rights away, especially our right to raise our children in a safe environment. Our health, and especially our children's health, never had a price on it. There is no amount of money that you could pay me to send my child to a place with those chemicals, surrounded by a place with those chemicals. How does something like this even happen? Who sold our children's safety and who sold their health? There is no way that any of our kids should be going to a school next to SILFAB. Who signs up for this? How do we end up having to just be okay with children learning and playing right next to chemicals that spontaneously ignite when exposed to air, like silane or like hydrofluoric acid, where only a small amount will close your airway, and if that doesn't happen, then your heart may suddenly stop. There's also anhydrous ammonia, which reduces skin to a sticky, gooey substance, causing burns that never heal. Trimethyl aluminum is also pyrophoric gas, meaning that it will spontaneously ignite with air. All these chemicals also react violently with water and a host of other things. You know, they will also be storing a lot of extremely toxic waste on site next to our schools, and they will be using water to do that as well.
Thank you, ma'am. That concludes our public forum session. I will just say, as I say at every meeting when folks have come out on SILFAB, there is a zoning issue that is currently before a judge in the circuit court that is handling that issue. There are several lawsuits that are pending on that as well. As for the issues related to phasing of certain developments, if you want to speak with our clerk on the way out, she can connect you with the planning director, at least to get the information related to the development on that. We do have consent agenda. The way that our consent agenda works is that any one council member can remove something from consent agenda and put it into the action items. There has been a request from a council member to remove item number 9 from consent so we will move that to item number 2 in new business. Do we have a motion on consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved. We move now to our first public hearing item. Council to hold a public hearing and consider first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 154, Land Development Code, Subchapter D, Green Infrastructure Standards, Part 4, Tree Conservation, to increase the radius of protective fencing around grand trees during construction, to provide for a public hearing, and to provide for other matters relating thereto. Do we have any information from staff before we move forward?
Good evening, Council. I'm Peter Kosicki, the county's landscape architect. I will be discussing tree protection fencing for grand trees specifically. A few months ago, Planning Commission made a motion to look at amending our grand tree protection fencing for grand trees within the limits of disturbance on developments. This was largely in response to the Clover Village development up off 274. There were 3 grand trees that were called to be protected initially on the middle of their site. They did protect the trees per ordinance, which is a 1-to-1 ratio, that meaning for every inch diameter of the tree, 1 foot of the canopy is supposed to be protected. The applicant obliged, went out there, we inspected, it all looked good. But I noticed after about 2 years that the tree started to decline. A third-party arborist also noticed that the tree had declined, and the applicant asked to remove them and to mitigate them. So after looking at the arborist report and looking at the tree myself, we basically decided that the tree didn't have much of a future in terms of long-term health, so we allowed for mitigation. And a lot of this was due to the disturbance around the tree, even though it was protected at a 1-to-1 ratio. It really conflicts with the anatomy of a grand tree. So here's a diagram of a grand tree and its root system. You can see the tree canopy in green and the root system in brown there. And our 1-to-1 ratio would be on the left, and you can see that the root structure of most larger trees, especially these grand trees like white oaks and such, their root systems are going to extend far beyond the canopy of that tree. In some cases, they extend 3 to 4 times the canopy of that tree. On the right is the proposal to change the current ordinance from 1-to-1 to 1.5. There'll be 1.5 feet for every caliper inch of that tree. And just to go back earlier, so a lot of the roots on the outside of the tree, they're the feeder roots, and that's really how a tree feeds itself. And once those are removed, the tree essentially cannot survive long-term after that. So here's another diagram of tree protection fencing, and this is recommended by the United States Forest Service. They recommend a 1.5-inch ratio, and you can see that the fencing is extending a little bit further than the drip line itself on there. This is from NC State University. These are their recommendations. So the middle, which is the better, at 18 feet in this example, would be equivalent to the 1.5 ratio that the county is proposing based on the Planning Commission's recommendation. And our this is our current regulation. We have the 1-to-1 ratio. Proposed amendment would change this to 1.5. This would only be for grand trees. The other trees would still be at 1-to-1. That would include trees in buffer yards, tree save areas, et cetera. And just a little bit as a background, most of our grand trees are mitigated. I would say at least 95% of them because of restrictions on development, et cetera. Most trees are mitigated for additional tree save or newly planted trees. So we're really looking at only protecting or changing this ordinance for a very small percentage of trees within the county and changing that to 1.5, which is really, other municipalities do that. So it wouldn't be drastically changing the ordinance. It would fall within the means of what other counties and municipalities do as well. So to conclude my presentation, this was voted on by the Planning Commission recently at a 7-0 vote. This would help to increase the survival of the protected grand trees, also help reduce structural failure. This is one of the public safety concerns that we have of preserving these trees. And also, as I said earlier, this would have a pretty minor impact on overall development since we mitigate since a high number of grand trees. So, thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for staff before we open public hearing?
I do have a quick question. Excuse me. So again, I guess the reason on this thing, have you seen where trees have been damaged by tractors that have come too close to the roots and et cetera? Is there examples of that? And that's the reason you're driving for a wider band around them?
Yeah, I mean, we see that every once in a while. Yeah, so. Like I said, the root systems extend generally far beyond the drip line. And trees are pretty sensitive, especially trees that have been there for decades. And these older trees, their vitality is generally down, and they don't respond as well than compared to younger trees to damage or change around them. So we do see that, but planning, like I said, Planning Commission brought this to our attention. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. Okay, so this study, I'm assuming you took a lot of your information that you got from a study by NC State, I think you said.
There's various sources. That was just one source.
Okay, and you
Yeah.
had another source. I forgot what the other source was.
There was United States Forest Service. There's also I think the Urban Tree Council for North Carolina. There's International Society of Arboriculture as well. So they all kind of fall in the realm of that 1.5-inch recommendation. So
These are very valid studies, and you trust them.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this matter? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Hey, everybody. Scott Coconut, 122 West Oak Street, beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood in downtown Fort Mill. Hey, as far as the tree ordinance goes, when we adopted it as a county a couple years ago, the county excluded themselves, so I think the county needs to go back on that, and should be under the same process of the rest of us citizens along that line, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And then also there was an exemption for large industries, where they would just, I think, pay the fine, would not have to do everything. So if we're going to do that, small businesses deserve the same treatment as large industries do. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you for everything you do.
Does anyone else wish to speak in favor? Do we have a motion to close?
Motion closed. Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Do we have a new motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the matter is approved. Item number 2, public hearing. Council to hold a public hearing of an ordinance to amend Chapter 70 by adding new Section 70.11 of the York County Code of Ordinances as it relates to the regulation of golf carts operating on and within the county public roadways within the Baxter Village Traditional Neighborhood District, and to provide for other matters related thereto. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak against this proposal? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor?
Hey, everybody. Scott Coconut, 122 West Oak Street, beautiful Whiteville Park neighborhood, downtown Fort Mill. Hey, I believe that everybody in District 1 and District 7 should be treated equally. I got friends right down in Sutton Place, and I would hate to tell them, in Baxter, you can drive your golf cart, but the next block down, you're not being allowed to. Down on Holbrook Road, there's neighbors, big neighborhoods down there, lots of friends with golf carts. They should be able to drive their golf carts to their neighborhood at nighttime. So if we're going to allow it just in the Baxter neighborhood, I think our Fort Mill School District deserves kind of the same treatment. So that would be all of District 1 and District 7. So that's what I'd like to happen on this item. So thank you again for your time.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else wish to speak in favor?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. And that's that. We do not have any old business, new business. Item number 1, council to authorize a proclamation recognizing January 25 through 31, 2026 as Medical Legal Death Investigation Professionals Week. And my understanding is that our coroner, Sabrina Gast, is here to speak on that matter.
Good evening, council. It's nice to be in front of you guys again. I just wanted to show appreciation for you guys doing the proclamation for us. I do have my staff, I believe all of my staff is, all of my investigative staff is here. I'd love to bring them up and just kind of introduce you so that you know who's working for you. They do work very, very hard. We are a very busy little office. Even to this year, to date, I think we've almost had 200 cases thus far. So we are busy, we are moving. We are very appreciative of everything you do for us. We are very excited about our new building coming. We're anxiously watching all of the developments for the builders when they send the photos for us every week. So very excited for that. But if I could just have my staff come up, I want to recognize them all. Come on up. We have Deputy Coroner Butch Lindsay, Deputy Coroner Ashley Stout, Deputy Coroner Gus Calzada, Deputy Coroner Brittany Robinson, Deputy Coroner Jeffrey DeLorme, Deputy Coroner Shani Ramirez, Deputy Coroner Wendy Bailey, and Chief Deputy Coroner Chris Westover. We do a lot for this county. We are very appreciative, again, of everything that you do for us, and very appreciative that you're issuing the proclamation for next week. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
If we, well, let's go ahead and get a picture while you're standing up here. Y'all assume the position.
Hey, y'all did that perfectly. Ready?
We do appreciate the work that our coroner's office does for our community. It's one of those things that you kind of don't realize it until a serious event occurs, and then you realize how important it is. And we haven't had the motion yet, but do we have a motion to approve the proclamation?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the proclamation is approved unanimously. Thank you. We move now to an item in the consent, item number 9. Consider approval of nominated applicants for service for boards and commissions from the Finance and Operations Committee meeting on December 15th, 2025. Rob Maison, Rock Hill, York County Convention and Visitors Bureau at large, George Tolson, Rock Hill, York County Convention and Visitors Bureau at large, John Segura, Planning Commission, District 2, Michael Peak, Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board, Sandra Goodman, Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board, and Ashley Hamilton, Catawba Regional Workforce Investment Board.
Motion to approve an amendment to replace John Segura with Jason Amentler.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I have for one. I sit on the Finance and Operation Committee, and we approve, it's our job to initially approve the appointees to various boards, actually all the boards. I've been here since 2011. This item is before us because someone doesn't agree with the appointment for the Planning Commission. We've had this discussion in the past over the last 15, 16 years. When applications are filled out, recommendations come to Finance and Operation Committee. I've had some of my appointees who I've recommended not make it through the Finance and Operation Committee. It's not a given that that district's council member gets to 100% say who's going to be that representative. I've had it happen to me several times. I had to suck it up and go with what the committee recommended. This was pulled as part of frustration, and rightfully so. You know, you're not going to agree with every decision every committee makes. We all don't agree with every decision this council makes. But part of the process is those that serve on these various committees get to make this particular appointment. Part of the avenue to challenge the decision is to bring it before the council and vote on it. And if we're going to, I guess, hold up appointees to boards and commissions, why send it to the committee if it's only going to be debated and not agreed upon? So I'm not going to support amending what my committee sent to this committee. I think it's only right that those of us who've been given that responsibility hold on to that responsibility and not continue to open it up because you didn't like what came out of the committee. So I won't be supporting the amendment because I supported the slate that we have in front of us. And the committee, although it wasn't unanimous, and it doesn't have to be unanimous for that person to be appointed. So I'll say to those who serve on the Finance and Operation Committee, let's stick with what we've put in place and let's leave it the way it is and not support the amendment, but support the original appointees that we sent to these various committees.
Well, I'll follow up on that. You know, the committees are not an approval board. You know, they send recommendations, but their approvals on none of the committees are final. So, you know, and there's only 3 people on the committee. There's 7 of us up here. So to have a committee that can make decisions for the rest of us and not have any say-so in that doesn't make any sense. For a committee to overrule a recommendation from a district member for somebody in their particular district and how they want to represent that district, you know, I agree. Why even have the F&O committee? These should just come straight to the council for approval. But the reason that I particularly don't think that this person is a good choice for this position is, for the first thing is that in 2022, they had to pay back to York County $51,229.02 in fees, penalties, and interest for underpayment of taxes, property taxes on their property in 2012, 2013, 14, 15, and 16. In 2016, they had their taxes redone so that they were considered a citizen of South Carolina, so that they didn't have to pay anything from 2016 to 2022. This person also had to have a release signed that the county wouldn't come after them for any other penalties and interest that they may owe, because they're pretty certain that they probably owe some other things that the county just didn't catch them on. The other part of that is they were holding their biases. They were not an unbiased member of the Planning Commission. They used their biases against many people in the district, including the Clover School District, which is an adjacent property owner to them. So we used biases for that. They were also the chairman of a district, of a committee and board in District 2 that they were the chairman of for several years, and just a few months after they were stepped down from that board to move on to the Planning Commission, that special tax district was suspended by the county manager for improper operations and not following county policies and other things. So they have a poor track record, and that is why I don't recommend them. I don't think they're a good fit for what we need as a representative in District 2.
Point of order, Madam Chair. The 30.09 of the county ordinances require a nomination to be made from the floor, and that nominee having a vote, or the council having a vote on that nominee from the floor, as opposed to the recommendation from the F&O committee. So it'd be a mini election for that member by county ordinance. So the remainder of the recommendations can proceed with the one recommendation from District 2 having a vote of council with the majority receiving, the person receiving the majority of the votes being the nominee of council to that committee.
How is that not rectified by the motion? The motion is to approve the existing slate with the amendment.
It is, but that's an amendment. It could be a distinction without a difference on that point, but the procedure to follow is to have to have one vote as if there were two candidates, with the one receiving the majority of the votes to be the nominee.
So we have to kind of pull that one out and do that one separately.
Then I think it is a distinction without a difference, but I mean, I'm not, since it's been called out, then I think the individual making the motion would need to, I think what I'm hearing is that legal is requesting that we have two separate motions. So if you want to withdraw your motion and move to approve the slate with the exception of the Planning Commission slot, that we will take up as a separate motion.
All right, what'd you say?
Withdraw your motion.
Withdraw my motion for approval and re-motion for approval of the slate, except for the Planning Commission District 2 seat, which will be held on a separate election.
Sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, this motion is to approve the slate with the exception of the Planning Commission. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the main slate is approached. Is the preference that we take up this issue now, or is this something that has to be re-put on an agenda?
It can be taken up now.
All right. Do we have a motion on the remaining seat?
Motion.
How are you asking us to do that?
To call out the respective names and vote on one first, and vote on the other second.
Weren't there 4 applicants?
No, there's one recommendation out of F&O, which was
There's one recommendation, but there were 4 applicants.
And one nominee from the floor. There are only 2 people at issue now before council.
All right. So you want us to take each one of them up separately?
Yes, please.
Can I get a motion on one of them?
Motion to vote on John Segura.
Second.
You're saying your motion is to approve John Segura?
No, I said it's a motion to do the election of it. This is not an approval.
All in favor of John Segura, raise your hand. All in favor of the other nominee, raise your hand.
Okay.
All those in favor of John?
Do we not have any
Do we
debate?
need
Have a debate?
Yeah, we need to have a debate on this particular candidate because.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, since we're doing it this way. Do I have the floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to go back and make a point of reference. It was referenced that a certain individual had tax issues. This person currently sits on the board. If there was any tax issue, and there were some questionables, I've had board members who had past due taxes. We can't approve them and seek them until all their tax liabilities have been rectified. That's part of being able to sit on the board. Now, we can't debate the why or how it happened, but once someone cures their debt to the county, they are able to be seated on a board. This person wouldn't be able to be currently serving if they hadn't made the county whole on whatever was owed. We don't know the particulars of what piece of property or why. This board finds out if those debts have been paid. I have had several people, whether it's car taxes, property taxes, boat taxes, that if it shows up, they cannot be approved by F&O, they can't be seated by F&O, they can't be seated by this county. So we're not here to debate as to whether this person has good character, bad character. The only thing this board considers is, does this person owe the county any due? And once that's cured up, that person is just like anybody else sitting out there. They have the opportunity to serve. And to say the person that we're speaking of is not the best representative, we all know when different people take office, there's a change in who they want to have serve, whether it was a coworker, whether it's a friend, whether it's a neighbor, but sometimes it gets down to those who supported me, who supported the other person. That goes on. That's politics. But to say a person is a bad character, not the best fit, the person served a term. We haven't had any ethical issues of this individual on the committee. So we're not here to debate their public character. No one can serve unless they meets all the criteria to be placed. I don't want anyone to think that just because the person had whatever going on, we're not here to debate that part. If I'm legal to serve, or that individual's legal to serve, that's all that should matter going forward. Personal preference obviously comes into play, and I've had several in my tenure that I wanted to have serve on a board or commission. The committee did not approve it. I asked for it to be reconsidered. It didn't happen, so let's don't change the rules now, because it will certainly anger me to see now someone going through this process doing the same thing that I was told no to several times. And I've been here the longest. It's happened to me. I wouldn't sit here and say it happened to me if it didn't. So why do it differently now? Because it's someone else. Maybe I didn't have enough friends on this council. Maybe this individual has enough friends on this council to make this happen. But it certainly sets a bad precedent doing it this way. And I certainly won't support it, even if I did think the person wasn't the best. But that's not why we're here to debate that part. Let's not undo our procedures that's been in place. I've been here, it's be 16 years coming up. We haven't done this. Why start now? I think we got the best procedure. We followed it. And just because someone doesn't like it, doesn't mean we undo our system to satisfy them. So I won't be supporting, I'll be supporting John Segura, and I want my colleagues to support John Segura as well. So that's all I have to say.
Let me just say that character is a very important reason to pick the people that serve you and represent you. But to go out and say that we're changing the rules and changing the laws, every appointee we do goes to F&O committee and then comes to council for final approval. We aren't changing anything. We approve every submittal that comes from the F&O committee.
So, just a couple of things, real quick. You know, that as far as when we have a nominee come up, I think as Bump explained again, any of the comments regarding taxes or et cetera, all those things have been addressed. He wouldn't be in this position if any of those things were in place. And he wouldn't actually be on the list to be nominated again after serving his term on his last term, if any of those existing issues are still occurring. So all those things were addressed. The other thing too, you know, as part of the process of going through the F&O process, it is a standard by which we stand by. It is critical that we come out of there with what we feel is a nominee. Again, as we went through the process, we both vote the way we need to vote, again. And it was a 2-to-1 vote. I actually did not support John on that vote. But I also recognize the fact that we came out of the process having John get a 2-to-1 margin on this thing, and we recognize him as retaining the votes in order to move forward with the process. So tonight I will be supporting John because of that process and because of what we do go through at F&O.
You got anything? Yeah, I just want to clear up something in what was said here, and I'd like to ask Kevin, when I was doing some research on this thing and vetting this thing, and I asked about some of what my colleague there mentioned about, I was thoroughly shown where the matters were took up very quickly, and it could have been a simple mistake from a state-to-state movement, right? Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I don't like to really, just out in public, just ruin people's character for no reason if it hadn't got to happen. You know how misconceptions can get took.
There was a tax issue. I remember you asked me about it. I had a facilitated phone call with yourself and the assessor. What I remember the phone call, the assessor said that it was handled quickly. He had a few questions and then took care of it. If in particulars, I honestly can't speak to the details about it. I know it was a large amount. I remember when it happened over there, you know, and I sort of to Tom and Bump's point, you know, Karen can speak to this in more detail than I can, but I know a lot of the appointees that come across do have some types of things to clear up oftentimes, unfortunately.
And also,
I had one.
can
You have what, a tax
I
issue?
had
Can I
one.
finish this also? I remember whenever all that was going on with the struggle of the school, and what actually started there was basically when some trees over the boundary line got pushed over, in which, unlike any property owners or whatever, generally get in a tussle if they think that they've been slighted or brought over on, crossover on their property lines, so it's kind of hard for us to judge one another one way and judge another way, so that's about all I got to say.
Any other discussion?
I don't have anything to share of any value. Support the alternate candidate that Councilman Litton would like to appoint.
I've served on this council for a good while now. I think it's dangerous to have these discussions like this publicly because I think it has a chilling effect on folks who apply for boards and commissions. I respect the work that the committee has done on this, but my personal approach has been to follow the council member's district appointment unless there is a specific disqualification. I am growing concerned that we need to set some different parameters, and I think that it has been referred to committee. These boards, we need them to focus on their job. We don't need them to get into political faction discussions and anything to take away from the business at order. So I do think that needs to be taken into consideration. But my understanding is that both of these individuals were qualified, and all of the individuals that were put on the slate were qualified. And so the motion currently on the table is to approve John Segura for this position. How many of those are approve that vote? Raise your hand. That vote carries 4-3. It dispenses with the need to have the following vote. Committee and other reports. Health and Environmental Protection Committee meeting. The chairman, Andy Litton.
Good evening. Tonight at 4:30, we had a Health Environmental Protection Committee meeting with Councilwoman Cloninger and Councilman Huckabee. And we went over the long-range parks master plan, on doing a scope for that and whether we want to put that out for a consultant to do or to try to get it done in-house or not even do a long-range plan. After a discussion, staff is going to look a little bit more about what they can do and then what they need to bring for us at the budget meeting to talk about. They also gave a update on the progress at Catawba Bend Preserve and Wood End Park. Catawba Bend has a whole lot of stuff done. It was really a whole lot more than I can write down, but they got bathrooms and roads and parking lots in. They're getting trails built. Some of it's just starting. Some of it is partially complete. And then Wood End Park has the parking lot is complete, and they are working on the design of the hiking trails.
Thank you, sir. Finance and Operations Committee, Chairman Tom Audette.
Yes, thank you. Tonight, we had a meeting, Councilman Roddy and Councilman Atkins were at this meeting tonight. We approved several recommendations for committee seats, starting off with Committee for Catawba Regional Workforce Committee Investment Board. It was nomination of Celestia Tiller for that position for a second term. The next one was Rock Hill York County Airport Commission, and the recommendation and approval was for Ty Hensley for a first term. The next one was Rock Hill Convention Center and Visitor Bureau, and the approval was for Elizabeth Bowers for a second term. Next, we had the Board of Assessment Appeals. This was for District 5 for an approval for a second term for Harry Johnson. And then also District 7, an approval for Vicki Smith for a second term. Next, we had the Board of Zoning Appeals approval for District 6 of David Wilburn for a first term. Next, we had the Bethel Fire Tax District Board, an approval of Charles Carpenter for a first term. And lastly, we had the Lake Wyland Marine Commission. This is for a seat for a first term to Gerald Ruzim for a first term under that seat. Lastly, we had approval for allocations of funds for District 3 for Area 11 Special Olympics for the amount of $3,500. We also had approved allocation for District 5 to Area 11 Special Olympics for amount of $2,500. Next, we had an allocations of funds for District 5 to Nation Ford Land Trust for the amount of $10,000. And then lastly, we had an allocation from District 5 for Clemson Extension 4-H for the amount of $2,500. And that will do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We do not have any citizen concerns tonight. Any council member new non-agenda comments before we go into executive session?
Yes, I'll go ahead and get started. So, for the second meeting in a row, we've been presented some, what I feel is critical information on, and I thank the public on what they're bringing to us on CILFAB. And this is critical because it's not only impacting our students, it's not only impacting the families, it's impacting the entire community. And this is critical that we get this straightened out and get this right. In light of this information presented in the last council meeting, on top of the information presented this council meeting, I strongly urge the council to move forward to put on our next agenda a request to vote on putting a pause to all permits for CILFAB until this critical information has been investigated fully. That would be my request to the staff, to the council, that we can put a pause and we can put this up for vote on a public vote. Critical. This is critical information. Thank you.
I have a comment. Okay. So last meeting, we were given the study from the University of South Carolina on the hazardous chemicals. And it's been said that, the county, we received the study and that we should have a third party to look into this. Well, University of South Carolina is our third party. So the county's saying we need a fourth person. So tonight, I found this ironic, so I wanted to bring this up. I love grand trees. I have this big, huge oak tree in my backyard, and I go out there and I look at it all the time. I grew up loving trees. But a lot of people don't like trees because they get in their way for development. Okay, so our planning and zoning department used, guess what? Some studies. They used NC State to make a determination about grand trees. They used the Forestry Service to make a determination about grand trees, to protect grand trees. Now, I use that, I want it to sink in, to protect grand trees. You see where I'm going with this? So the University of South Carolina did a very comprehensive, because actually the study that came out was part 3. It wasn't the first study, it wasn't the second, it was part 3 to show the hazardous of these chemicals to these 1,900 children and 58,000 residents that are within those circles of hazardous chemicals. Now, we need to protect those children and the citizens, me included. I'm in 1 mile radius. So, I'm asking that this be put on the public agenda for the next meeting to look at this and make some determinations about pausing these permits.
We need to be here to protect our children. That is critical. That is number 1 on our list.
Mr. Roddy.
I just want to say real quick, I noticed, well, I hope you guys noticed, I mentioned in the prayer or the moment of silence about recognizing people that made significant contributions to this country, that we can enjoy the freedoms and liberties that we do. Martin Luther King Jr. was on my mind. Of course, yesterday was the holiday. When I was in college, they always would tell us, don't make this a day off, make it a day of service. And so that's kind of where some of my public service started, to do something, to make a contribution, and that's kind of how I landed in doing what I'm doing now, as well as working a full-time job and supporting a family. But it's critical that people have visions much bigger than what's sitting in front of them, so that we leave, whether it's a job, whether it's a community or this earth, better than what we found it. And I think that's one of the major things that Dr. King stood for. He wanted to make some changes that, not just for black people, but it helped change the world overall. You know, it wasn't to take anything away from the other side. It was to make things equal and better for everybody. And I think sometimes people get lost in that messaging and what he stood for. Yeah, everybody goes out and does the prayer breakfast and recognize the holiday. But then if you go right back to doing the same thing that you were doing days and weeks before that, only to take a pause in recognizing it, but not trying to incorporate that into our daily lives, not into our community, then it's a wasted day. It's just another day off. It's just another federal holiday, whether you get paid for it or not. So my ask and my challenge to everybody is that we not only recognize, but start to make some of those changes that he was asking for, he was fighting for, because some of those same fights and same struggles are still here today, and they're being magnified even more. And I just think it just rips at the fiber of this country when we don't recognize that things are not as good for everybody. You know, some of us sit up here, we got good jobs, we got good homes, we got good everything, but then on the other side, there are people who don't have it like that. And it's selfish if we don't recognize those people who don't have it as good and just thinks that everything's just like what we see in the mirror, but there's not. When you look in the mirror, you see what you are and what you have. But there are a ton of people out there who are truly less fortunate, who need a hand up, not a handout. And some of the things that we're still fighting for is to give those people that hand up. And I hope we're not missing the opportunity every single day to do something that's meaningful to those who don't have. Because when we walk out of here, hop in our car, and we hit the next corner and take a right or a left, we probably see somebody that needs something that we don't have, that we don't even utilize. And so my ask for this council, people visiting and people watching on TV or the replay, everybody has a part to play in making this county, this country, and this world a better place. And if you miss that opportunity, you're missing a huge opportunity to serve whatever God you represent, missing a huge opportunity to serve whatever community you're a part of. So my ask is that when you leave here, or when you finish watching this, take it upon yourself to say you're going to make some changes somewhere in your community, somewhere in your life, somewhere in this country. And that's my comment.
Anyone else? Do we have a motion for executive session?
Yes, we do. We got a few things here. Receipt of legal advice, legal matters, litigation update. Next, receive of legal advice, consideration of mediated settlement agreement, project number 1149-004, project US 21-SC51, track 55. Next, we have a personal matter, contractual matter, county attorney annual review, and then lastly, receipt of legal advice, contractual matter, county housing of inmates, IGAs.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move straight into executive session. We are out of executive session. No action was taken. Do we have any motions?
Yeah, one motion. Motion to approve mediated settlement agreement for project 11149-04, track 55 as discussed in executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.